Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 4th Annual Field Podcast. I'm Jim Kobe, an assistant professor of English and the editor-in-chief of Field, a journal of arts and sciences here at IU Kokomo. If you're unfamiliar with Field, it's IUK's journal of student arts and research. We publish poetry, prose, research, visual art, musical scores, comics, interviews, and so much more. Now, let's hear from some of the students working on Field's executive board this semester.
Hi, my name is Elise Bresch, and I'm the managing editor for Field. My major is communication with a focus in journalism, and I minor in marketing. I'm most interested in writing, editing, publishing, and marketing books.
Hi, my name is Kaya Bodgers, and I am the art director for this year's volume of Field. I am a new media, art, and technology major, but my main focus is graphic design. My interests include drawing and creating digital media works.
Hello, my name is Piper Dar, and I am a junior majoring in English with a minor in history. This is my first semester as a part of the Field Executive Board. I am the assistant and copy editor. In my spare time, I enjoy reading, spending time with my friends, and working at a daycare.
And now, let's hear from some of our contributors from Volume 7 of Field.
Hi, my name is Ellis Castor. I'm a digital media artist from Kokomo, Indiana. My drive is to explore human stories so that people can be inspired to find a deeper connection with humanity. Using all forms of media production, focusing on videography and digital illustration, I aim to create powerful narratives to explore the stories that make us who we are. In my submission to this edition of Field, I tell part of my own story. I've recently stretched outside my comfort zone and become somewhat of a world traveler. These photos were all taken with my partner in Korea over the summer months. In all three, through color, form, and line, I attempt to abstract this phase of my life. The series represents my feelings of growth and the stages through which my artistic inspiration has shifted. I find an intense feeling of rebirth with exploration, and yet there is an undertone of melancholy that comes with leaving what you know behind. The human form is relatable, especially the silhouette, which, through its ambiguity, allows the viewer to project themselves. I love to capture this form and present it in a way that acknowledges my intentions, and so I use it heavily in these works. But I also want to leave room for you, the viewer, to understand it in the way that's most helpful for you. I hope these photos help you engage with the story and perhaps inspire you to tell a story of your own.
And now, we'll hear 2 poems from Allison Adley.
Sheets left tattered and cold. A kettle of tea was left screeching. Flames were left to flicker out. Drapes remained hand in hand. Sudden sunshine cast through the cracks of its floral. Clothes left hanging on the drying rack. Toothbrushes had forgotten their purpose. Sweats and a t-shirt still cover the body. The same outfit from 3 days ago, frozen in time. The eyelids still kissed, shielding the eyes from light. The world out there had become quiet, still. The sound of its hollow ran through the empty city streets. The news has read the same headline repeatedly. Crisis, pandemic, death. The world had stopped rotating. Its axis screeched to a halt. Anticipation and shock ran across the nation. People locked themselves into homes turned wooden cages, only leaving to buy enough essential items for an entire city. The streets were lonely, reminiscing about children clanking bells and bicycle chains, about families walking together, holding hands, showing their teeth. All that was left were faces cut in half, distance between human connection. Nature was all that was left to keep the city company. For the first time, the world fell silent. I awaken to the sky's paint brushing across my face, but I can't see its watercolor sunrises anymore, only a gradient of gray and white. I throw off the crimson covers and grab my car keys. My therapist told me to go somewhere that used to feel like home. I walk through thick trees, searching for the spark I must have dropped somewhere. Trees spiderweb, scraping across my irises for just a moment. I stumble and scuff my shoe in the soft mud. I grab leaves from a vine twirling around a tree nearby. I wipe the deep brown from my cream-colored soles, only making it worse, reminding me that pushing my emotions down into the deep depths of my consciousness does not rid me of them. My hand begins to sting and swell into crimson. I wonder why I ever came here in the first place. I find a puddle, a small sunshine, and open my hand into it. My mind wanders. I begin to think about how the pain distracted me from the mess. The sounds of birds chirping and leaves crackling in the brush, signs that there is something more to life than the clutter, the closed window shades, the 4 white walls. I hardly remember the last time I felt free. I take a deep breath, close my eyes, and remember that I am still alive. I begin to walk again, through the clearing and onto a new path. I used to love this place, bringing peanuts and pecans for the squirrels, watching the birds flap their wings, wishing I could too. Maybe I judge too quickly. Maybe a bad beginning doesn't have to be a bad day. Maybe a bad few months doesn't have to be a bad life.
Hello, my name is Madeline Cinnamon, and I am a senior double major in New Media Art and Technology and Performing Arts with a concentration in music. The arts have always been a huge element in my life, which inspired me to pursue them in my college career and future career in the real world. The piece that I have featured in this edition of Field is Lullaby of Light, a digital illustration and an original recorded song. Inspiration for this project came from an honors class that I took in the fall of 2022. It was about music and why people sing. We had this discussion about lullabies and how they are essential to a child's well-being. The gentle lyrics and the calming sound of the caregiver's voice reassures the child that there is nothing to be afraid of, which empowers them and makes them stronger people in the future. I have always wanted to create a piece that combined my passion for music and visual art, and I found this project to be a great opportunity to do so. The art came first, then the music, which I recorded all by myself. The artwork reflects a cartoon style, which was inspired by the artwork from classic Disney movies and children's literature. It shows a mother singing a magical lullaby to her infant daughter. In the distance, the baby is all grown up and dressed in a glittering dress and crown of music notes. She is clothed in strength from her mother's powerful song that helps her overcome her greatest fears. The song includes an uplifting soundtrack consisting of a dreamy 3-part harmony vocals, and I sang all of those parts, which was not easy by any means, and guitar and empowering lyrics that addresses overcoming common childhood fears, including thunderstorms, monsters underneath the bed, and the dark, of course. My favorite line of this song is, "There's power in this melody, more than you'll ever know, and you will be a stronger person when you wake up tomorrow." Because it truly demonstrates how powerful music can be, and how it can make a person more confident. I hope you enjoy listening to the song and seeing this art piece as much as I enjoyed making it.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Harris, but if you call me Rebecca, I probably won't answer. My friends like to call me Beba or B. And I like having a lot of fun little names like that because it reminds me of Junie B. Jones when she says, "But I don't like Beatrice, I just like B, and that's all." In Field Volume 8, I have 2 pieces. In the physical publication, you'll find my poem called The Detail That Accrues, and online you can check out my short story called Tug of War, but the full title is actually Fiction by Monthly, Tug of War. So those of us that have pieces in Field, we were asked to give context to our work and then a little bit of a reading. And I guess I gotta talk about my writing process with these pieces because sometimes you don't know the context of your work until it's already out there on the page and you're like, wow, that certainly happened. But I like talking about writing because it never happens exactly the same every time that you do it. I have my own personal methods that I like to use, but the strange thing is with these 2 pieces, those methods didn't really occur. Both of these pieces, it was different from how I usually write things. Usually when I write, I sit down and I'm comfy and I'm ready to sit there for a few hours and ponder everything I can. My poem, The Detail That Accrues, I did not sit down for a few hours and think thoroughly through everything. It actually was a piece birthed in a whirlwind. So, I have my special journals that I usually write in, but this poem actually started in the margin of my world history notes. When I wrote this poem, I had chosen to say goodbye to somebody who I thought knew me. And I mean, I really thought this person could at least recognize my essence, and that surprised me at the time. But I kept thinking to myself, but if you know me and you knew my heart, why would you go about doing what you did in the way that you did? And that's just what was on my mind at the time. So I'm sitting in class and I'm trying to comprehend, ancient groups of people in hopes that I can understand the individual. And I start to react pretty strongly to certain group practices, which I realize are still done today. I think one of them was, we were talking about how these people like to be buried, dating things, and we still obviously date tombstones, but then I began thinking about the cornerstones on buildings and stuff like that. And as I'm reacting to these practices, I feel the need to write down these lines for reasons that are unknown to me. So I'm sitting there and I'm juggling notes, heartbreak, and some creative process in one sitting. I got out of that class and I finished writing my thoughts, but it was all in prose. Later, I made some edits, but I kept it in prose. And it wasn't until the next draft that I arranged it into stanzas. And even after that, there was one more draft where I made some changes before the finished poem. I wouldn't say the product is extremely different from the original, but I guess the details needed to accrue. This piece was definitely an example of why writers don't leave the house without a piece of paper or at least a free spot in their notes app. And with that, I will say that I'm not a fan of reading my own poetry out loud, but here's the detail that accrues. The classic world is not so different from our own. The main separation between the past and the present is in the widespread of technology, which keeps us apart from another. Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, and I would have been great friends, arguing constantly, back when debate met in person and those included chose to. instead of searching for knowledge only when you must acquire it. Of course, there are still the sophists, the cynics, and the pure Stoics, asking the same questions as they did before. The Etruscans dated their foundations as a proclamation of existence. Next to nothing is known about them, just their elaborate burials and myths regarding the founding of Rome. Flash forward to an age of personalization. We date posts and memories as the foundation of buildings, but we also color and remove and stylize. It should make distinct, yet it's more like a paint of every pigment dumping simultaneously into an empty pool. Yellow into green from mixing with the blue. We try to spread apart the paints, but the devil is in what accrues. And I'm here, except I'd rather not be. I never chose to date, still it is automatic. Despite our 1,000 foundations, who can know more than the history book? Our paint's drawn out. People peer close, only to say, "You are red." As for my short story, Fiction by Monthly Tug of War, that actually started out as a class discussion. I haven't written many short stories, and so far they've actually all been for classes. My professor was talking about this author in class one day who wrote these horrible murder stories, but was the sweetest person ever. And she made this remark basically saying, could you imagine if she actually did the murders that she wrote about? And I laughed at the idea. I found it like a puzzle. I blurted something out about how the stories would have to be some sort of confession. It was the only solution that I could immediately think of. From there, I had a million questions to answer, like, why would a killer want to confess by stories? And what did she hope to achieve by the confession of her crimes in stories? So from there, I just did a lot of character sheets and a lot of thinking about who she was as a person and what her motivation was. It was a story where I knew it was going to end generally one of two ways, and I sincerely did not know which way it would end until I wrote it out. I actually chose the full title to be Fiction by Monthly, Tug of War, because visually it looks like a printing of her last confession. Here's a section from the story. Carol Green invited me to Sunday morning service to meet my fans. You might wonder how I could achieve forgiveness if the readers cannot tell fact from fiction. I was confessing. That's all that mattered. I did all that was required in a way that just so happened to prevent baiting my opposers to my doorstep. It's not my fault the public couldn't tell. It's not my fault the church book club was so smitten. If you would have known them, their white teeth and innocent gazes, you would understand that I couldn't break the reality that they had created. I stepped into the church as a mouse rounds the corner when a cat is present. Without a word, I was the one that was snuffed out.
And now, here's a poem from John Wasmuth.
I could finally breathe. I could finally live. The weight that dragged me down for years was gone. I stepped outside and felt the golden rays. The light shone down on my face for the first time. I felt the grass between my toes, admired the darkening orange sky, savored the gentle smell of the lilac flowers. I walked back inside and took a sip of coffee. My eyes could no longer hold in the tears. So this is life. Where have you been all these years? I tucked myself into bed, no longer haunted by my fears. I awoke to a dark and dismal room. What happened yesterday? Had it all been a dream? For a second, I was free. For a moment, I was truly me. But now it's back, darker than ever, and it's far stronger than me.
That concludes this year's Field podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks to all the contributors who sent in their work. And thank you for all the artists who allowed us to use their music on this podcast. If you're interested in learning more about Field or submitting your works, you can email me, Dr. Kobe, at fieldpub@iu.edu, or find out more information about the journal at iuk.edu/field. Thanks again for listening.